So you see, Moji and Forever, they set the scene. And we're going to be talking. But at the same time, you see, you said 360 woman. It's the entirety of who you are. There is seriousness, there is joy. We live in a wonderful country called Nigeria. We have challenges, we have joy. And increasingly, just starting to appreciate what all of that is. So let's get into this. I know this is a welcome address, but just bear with me because I'm hoping to just share my own personal journey, which I love how Moji framed it, saying, we're not trying to be different. We're just showing you what is possible as a human, what you can all, every single person in this room can do. So I'm going to start with just thanking Yvonne for the topic. I loved it. Elevate. You're talking about women of vision, of influence, and of impact. I absolutely loved that. And I started off telling you all that being here is already an act of leadership, right? So let's start with the definition of elevate. Just throw out a word you think about. Somebody just tell me, what do you think about when you hear elevate? To step up. I like that. From this side, somebody give me some. Upgrade. That's another famous. To upgrade, right? To grow. Thank you. To grow. To grow. Level up. So all of that. Upgrade, all of that. We're not doing the Beyonce thing, but you get it. We get it, right? Well, you see, I want you to take a minute to think about that word elevate, because I want to take it to a level that brings it inwards today. When you hear elevate and you talk about conferences like this, I think there's always a tendency to think about external elevation. And that is absolutely incredible. But today, I want you all to walk away with something that I feel has even greater tangibility and gives you a crazy amount of control as you all are here. And that's the internal elevation. Because the phrase, and somebody mentioned it over here, is the definition of elevation is saying you're lifting to a higher place. You're raising in rank and character. I love the portion that talks about you're uplifting in spirit and your purpose. You're uplifting in your spirit and in your purpose. Now, this is something that you don't need any external validation for. You don't need any titles for. It's something that it is absolutely within your control to do. And I'm going to start by saying, we had the music right here. To do this, what does that mean? It means that you're going to have to go inwards. And I'm saying this to all of you here because we live in an incredible country. But one of the things that I've found is that it's a country that's noisy. You wake up in the morning, what do you hear? For most of us, and to be honest, it's part of the ginger, right? We wake up, sometimes it's the call to prayer for some people, it's the generators, unfortunately. It's noisy. I was talking to Yvonne today, she has a friend who in the car, she deliberately turns off the radio. There's a reason why, because she wants to get inwards. My first ask of all of you, as you think about elevation, is I'm saying to you, turn it inwards. And then when I talk about inwards, what do I mean? I'm saying I need you to get a bit silent. Everybody here can do that. And this is the first step for me to getting elevated, to getting more grounded and aligned with your purpose. Because you see, without doing that internal silence, without taking away the distractions, what often happens is a misalignment. You're doing things because your friend is doing it. You're doing it because they've told you the clock is ticking. You need to be going. And what I've found is that for myself, you hear the bios, and I don't pay too much attention to titles and things, but honestly, the beginning of that 20-year journey was learning to listen to myself, regardless of what people were saying, and they will have valid reasons. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story, but without that internal alignment, you will not get, without that internal introspection, you will not get aligned, and you won't see yourself clearly. Please write that down. You need to see yourself clearly, because other people will define you for you. Other people will tell you what you should be doing. But I believe in that alignment. If your spirituality is very important to me, that spiritual alignment with yourself, what do you want to get out of your own life? Now, when you have that alignment and you start to see yourself clearly, it helps you with articulating where you then need to go. So the reason I'm saying you get quiet is because without that being quiet, you find that for some people, it makes you incredibly reactive to things. You don't pause. You don't stop to think through what are the repercussions of what you're doing, for example. And you really need to get centered in such a way that integrity is something that people associate with you. You know, and that's something I love about this wonderful, incredible convener of ours, Yvonne. I'm going to get to you, Yvonne, in a second. But you see, it's those things you do way before the titles come. And that's why I love the demography here. Some of you are achieving incredible things at a very young age. I've seen that. Some of us are still growing. But you see, it's really important that in those moments when you're still building and you're still climbing, do the things that you should be doing, regardless of if anybody is watching or not. And I use myself as an example, working within organizations. One of the little things that I would do was always, I had friends who would tease me and go, where are you going to? Why are you dressed up? It was a constant thing. And I would laugh about it. I said, let me tell you something. If those that know me, even on a desert island, even during COVID, Yvonne, you know, there's just, and it's not about spending money on expensive clothes or anything like that. That's, you know, if you have it, that's wonderful. It's not that. It's a mindset. It's a presentation. You know, and I see people, because we worked in offices, we had 5,000 people in the organization. I promise you, I can tell for most people, as they get into a graduate management program, you know those who are ready and those who are not ready. How are you presenting yourself? Please note, I'm not talking about designer clothes, wearing labels. That's all well and good. It is your presentation, how you present yourself. How do you respond when somebody or your boss or your senior requires you to go the extra mile? How do you respond when they ask you to volunteer for things? You know, so when I worked in the Sahara Group, for example, I remember we used to have end-of-year parties every year. And anyone who's done it or convened an event knows it's a lot of work. And so in addition to your day job, you will sometimes be asked to do things like that. Are you the person who's putting up their hand and trying to do that? These things all help in building out your character. So I'm just saying, think about it holistically. Don't just have your eyes on that one thing you want to achieve. Just think about how you're developing yourself as a whole, right? And when I think about it and just getting silent and thinking about what you want to achieve and this theme of this event around women of vision and impact, I think about Yvonne. And I love that Moji mentioned the first time you came here because Yvonne, again, is somebody I have chosen to be a younger sister. And I'm absolutely amazed by what you keep doing. Yvonne will call you beginning of the year. I want to do this. I want to do a PhD. I want to write a book. And she does it. Not because she's saying everything about it is going to be perfect, but she's willing to be courageous and take that first step. And for that, I want us to, again, just applaud the visionary that you are. Yvonne, she writes, you know, the Bible says you write the vision and make it plain. I have seen you do that. And I keep telling her that I'm not your big sister, you're my mentor. Because she does it. So I'm saying, again, something to take out of here. As you get silent, I love writing, journaling, for those who can do that. Get silent, write it down. Get an accountability partner. Tell someone you trust as well, so that they're holding you accountable to those things that you need to be doing. Okay, so now if I'm getting personal, because we said we're talking about this elevation, and I'm talking about, you know, forget the where you land. Where did you start from? A little bit about my story. I started off my life as a lawyer in the UK, and some of you might know that, sorry. Hey, the lawyers in the house. Hey. And so, for me, I think what's interesting about getting silent is you've got to be true to, you know, there's a quote I love that goes, the things that excite you are not random. They're connected to your purpose, right? The things that excite you are not random. They're connected to your purpose. And I say this because the discovery of my purpose wasn't the norm. Most of my friends were going into law firms. They were going into the city, and that's fine. But for me, I found a firm that didn't seem like it was doing what everybody else was doing. That's number one. The willingness to kind of go and do what not everybody else is doing, but it feels right to you. That organization was called the Crown Agents, and they worked in international development. Now, I loved the work because that introduced me to working with the NGOs, so the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, UNICEF, and all of these things. But here's the clincher. It didn't pay as much as the jobs in the city. The jobs in the city were a lot shinier, but at that point, I wanted to start with something that excited me. Now, I did it for a couple of years, and as things happen, as you're young and there's youthful exuberance, I thought, how can I elevate in the external sense of the word? And I'm saying this to you also. Really realize that we're going to make mistakes along the journey. What are you taking away from that? Now, I learned probably the most valuable lesson that I ever have on my career journey, because I then went about and thought, so if you know the way the UK legal sector is organized, the cream of the crop in terms of jobs are in the city. So it's like, your VI, your Ikoyi. I was able to secure a job that, in a sense, overnight, I tripled my salary. But guess what happened? I hated it. I was working in corporate finance. I absolutely hated the job. So on the outside, it looks great, right? You've got the credentials, you've got the pay, and people will tell you just, suck it up and continue to do it. For me, it didn't align with what I knew I enjoyed. It didn't light me up. If anything, it took away from the light. And then I'm projecting forward, seeing what people were doing, it didn't seem like a good fit for myself. So that, again, was another, for me, a real test, because it was another time that I was exercising what I'll call the courage muscle. So we all know that courage is not doing things without fear. It's basically you're doing it regardless of. And the only way to keep getting better is that you keep exercising that muscle. So for me, it meant that I stepped away again from that job, and not just left that job, but I moved back to Nigeria. I moved back to Nigeria 17 years ago. And at that point, again, so a lot of people, they were like, why would you do that? You have your job, you have your, my husband was in the UK. We were professionally qualified. It didn't make sense to a lot of people. But again, for me, it was the pull, because we both knew we wanted to work on the continent. The work that I was doing at Crowd Agents showed me exciting things happening here, but I felt like I was doing it from the wrong side of the table. And so we, again, made that decision to move to Nigeria. And for me, it's been the best move, because it allowed me basically work for an organization that was African-owned, but operating multinationally. That's pretty different in terms of what you see. You get a lot of companies that are multinationals operating on the continent, in Nigeria, all over. It was different. The energy was youthful. They gave me the freedom and the laxity to design the team that I was leading in a way that is very difficult to find when you go to the bigger NGO. So again, I say this to say, please have patience in the process that is before you. I think that sometimes there's a rush to just get to the end, because it will not always be visible at the point, but you're trusting the process and doing all that you can at that particular stage. So I'm just taking the time to share this, because I feel that sometimes there's always the gloss about how it ended for you, but it's really important to also understand the journey that got you there. And so working within this organization, this is where, for me, it was come with your whole self. Deliver. Make sure you're contributing, you're asking to do things that go beyond. If I saw a problem, for example, something didn't sit right, and I talk about this a lot, where I had my daughter and came into the organization, and I found that there were no nursing corners for women. I think this was, again, the beginning of my outward expressing of a love for matters to do with women and girls. And to a lot of people, my daughter, I was done raising her and the breastfeeding phase, right? So I didn't need the nursing corner. I feel like it could have been easy to just forget about it and just move on. But I decided that I was going to, speak to management about it. Remember, I was still pretty young in the organization, and said, let's just conduct a survey. Can we get HR involved in this? Long story short, it ended up with us being able to create nursing corners within this organization, because people came together, because the question was asked, because people were challenged. And it wasn't because they didn't care before. It was just that nobody had brought it to the ear of management, for example. And so, again, I know that all of you are in different phases of your careers. I just say this to say, I would always say to people, there's a problem. You keep asking, you keep saying, somebody should fix it, or it should be fixed. And I'd always say, who is the it, or who is the somebody that's supposed to fix this thing? So I'm challenging you all as well. There are things that you can do, there are things that you can fix right where you are. Just be the person who's starting that process and going about doing it. So that alignment was really, really helpful. And the long story short for me, within the Sahara journey, going from a lawyer, when the time came, because of different things that I'd done over time that basically made people see that I had this alignment with matters to do with women and with girls, it just made sense that they would then mention your name where there was a particular event or there was a board that somebody thought needed a recommendation for. They would mention your name. Now, the reason I'm saying you get quiet is that if you don't do that internal introspection, if it's meditation you want to do, if it's, whatever it is, if people get exercise, you have to basically find that for yourself. Nobody can define that for you. It was doing that introspection that got me to the points where I was able to be consistent. There was alignment in terms of what excited me. It was Africa. It was women. It was anything to do with girls, educating girls. that people just started to align with myself and my name, and it helped with building out these networks that would then ensure that your name was mentioned in spaces that you were not. So I love what Moji and Forever was saying about stop constantly looking ahead or above you. It's really important that you're also building those circles right across the board, horizontally, vertically. All of these things are incredibly helpful, for me. In fact, what I call them are brag circles. So I say, I loved, as I was watching you all come in today, you wouldn't have noticed, but I noticed that there were little clusters for some of you. I could see you were taking pictures, you were having conversations, and it was really beautiful to see. I'm just encouraging you to continue to do that, but do it even more intentionally, right? Because I say that this is one of the things that I see men do better than women, and I love how we're saying it's a collaborative thing, right? So for the girls, I'm tasking you, girls and the women, you have your friendship circles, and we do get together a lot, but guess what? I find that a lot of times, you will sit in a room with a lot of your girlfriends, and at the end of 3 hours of lovely chatter, gisting, drinking, none of you will know what the other person does. I mean, what a waste and what a tragedy. So I'm tasking all of you as well. And I try to do that with my friends. You walk in, as you're hugging and laughing and air kissing, she's XYZ in this organization. This person is that. And then when you find out that they need things, you're also going the extra mile because you now have the awareness of who was in the room. And then intentionally being upfront about mentioning their names and putting them forward for things where you know that you could be helpful, just going over and beyond. They have businesses. Can you be supporting them? Can you recommend them to your organization? And so for me, that is honestly the real elevation that needs to happen. The internal needs to happen first of all, and I promise you, as you start to align internally, something will start to happen externally. The shift will happen. People will see that this is authentic, and that's the other thing. It can't be fake. If you are claiming to like something that you don't like, people will find out eventually. We've seen that on social media. You've seen people who sometimes they become an influencer and the next thing is like, oh, somebody has outed them. Or they've said, that will not happen if that is your reality. If that's your truth, they cannot out you. It is what you like. And I love the demography I see here because one of the things that I see as well is, you see this courage muscle? I used to say that I was going to make a t-shirt saying the Gen Zs are my role model because honestly, I applaud you all for going for things that I know that it's a mixed room, but speaking to the majority of you, I love how you are going off the beaten track. I love how you are courageous about it. I love how you are unapologetic about it. Combine it, honestly, it deserves a round of applause. I would never have thought 20 years ago that somebody would wake up and decide, oh, I like making traditional food, so I'm going to get my ring light out and start recording it and start an entire channel just based off of it, monetize it, build brands out of it. My goodness, you guys deserve a massive round of applause because it is not easy. I say continue to do what you're doing. And the other thing you're doing as well, you're redefining what success means. You're redefining what success means. And I saw a very successful businessman was asked about his own definition of success once. And he said to the interviewer that he really doesn't care about what the numbers are, what people say he's worth in terms of his millions in the bank. He was just saying, the greatest test for me will be coming back to my family and asking them and having a home. The way he put it, he said, having a home when I get to age 80, by the grace of God, and that home is filled with family members who willingly want to be there. The home is filled with family members, so his grandchildren, his children, the extended family, willingly is the key point. We see a lot of people who are having to force their family members to come back. There's so much raucous and infighting, even after the people have died. It's horrible because the time hasn't been taken. So I again want to take this moment to applaud you all because I see people redefine what success is going to look like. So for me, it meant that I wanted to change the way I worked. I wanted to work remotely because I wanted to have more time. I wanted to work on the continent. I wanted to work globally. And so I'm sort of doing a walk-back test for you all to say the things you can take away from here today are things that are absolutely within your control. You've got to get a bit silent. You've got to get inwards a bit. You've got to take that time to just figure out what it is that really genuinely excites you. And I'm not saying this naively because unfortunately we live in a country where what you like may not be easily monetized in the first instance, and you have to do it alongside your day job. Fine, but come up with a plan. Start. I love how you all will start. It's fail fast, fail forward, all of those things. I absolutely love it. So again, I think carry on doing all of that. And really for today, it's just saying that as you do this, as you master yourself, as you understand yourself better, I just really want to remind you that honestly, it comes from the inside. That's courage muscle. The courage that you need to get you to that point, it comes from really being still, that stillness. And the next level, really, it's not something that you chase. It's not something that people should give you. It's not a title, because I've seen titles change. I've absolutely experienced that. I've taken years out of work where there was no title, and you're left with yourself. And you need to be comfortable with yourself. So I'm just saying that really all those things that you need, the skills that you need are within you. The external is fantastic, but just start with the internal. And I cannot wait to see you all elevate, but elevate in a way that starts internally before it goes externally. That's it.